Oh, okay. Nice. Well, hello and welcome everyone. I'm Paul Stewart, Life Body Training, and it's my great privilege and honor to introduce today Blair Styra. Blair is a very dear friend of mine and also a wonderful teacher in his own right. And he's living in New Zealand. We've known each other for 20 years. And he's been going about his work there in his beautiful home, as you can see. And behind him is a beautiful painting of Tabaash, who is his guide and teacher. And Blair is a wonderful channel for Tabaash. And Blair, welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, and thanks so much.
Yeah, oh look, it's great. I think it's a great idea that you had about, just talking to Tabaash, and not just because of what's going on in the world at this point, but for lots of different things. So perhaps I should give a little bit of a background about who I am and what I do. So I've been a channel for spirit for over 30 years, and Tabaash is the spirit that I've been channeling. Tabaash is, I think he's quite unique in the way that he communicates to people, because he's very personable. So when people talk to him, they feel like they're embracing a really great friend. And he's so engaging and so honest and almost so human in the way that he projects his humor and just his knowledge and wisdom that he gives to people personally as much as generally. And obviously, as a channel for spirit, I've chosen this reality to participate in because it's also been about my development and growth, as everything is. And so I feel very honored and grateful to have had these experiences with Tabaash, because it's taken me all over the world, and I've met up with extraordinary people and been to extraordinary places where you can really feel the energy and the power of the world.
Yeah.
Come back from Cusco in Peru, where I was presenting with a colleague of mine, Alba Weinman, and it was an extraordinary experience. The energy, excuse me, of Peru was very sacred.
Mm.
And I think it's very appropriate for this sacred time.
You could really feel that, because I found that a video online, a segment of that, and you could really feel it. And it's quite a contrast now. You've come back and you're going into lockdown.
It was interesting being away. We were this group, about 38 of us, and it was almost like we were in a different world, because we knew things were happening, but at that point it wasn't to the extent that things had happened. So we were just living on this other planet and involving and enjoying and evolving in the way that we could. And then, of course, reality hit as we all started to, try to get back home. I was very lucky because 2 days after I left Lima, they closed the border. And it's a weird experience. The plane was a quarter empty or a quarter full. And when I got into LAX, which of course is, the maddest airport in the world, it was like this giant mausoleum. And I got through customs and I was on the shuttle to the hotel within 10 minutes of landing. And it was just so bizarre, because there was hardly traffic on the road, and you could feel that everything had moved into a complete different gear, actually.
What's the vibe in New Zealand like at the moment? Because I'm in Tokyo, as you know. So.
Well, since I got home, I pretty much went into quarantine straight away. So I've been 7 days in isolation, and so I'm in my own little bubble. So I haven't even been anywhere. So I'm watching the news, and I have friends doing food drops for me and sort of conversations through the window, that sort of thing. And I had some friends the other day who arrived, and we were just talking over the fence, and they were throwing chocolate bars at me, you know.
I want neighbors like that.
Yeah, I'm like, this is just so bizarre, you know, because these are like my great friends, and suddenly we can't hug each other, and we have to talk at a distance. And so all the things, you know, my routines and stuff that I would normally do, I just can't do. So, I mean, I'm able to do my work, which is good. But I do some dusting and vacuuming and polishing and cleaning.
It does look very clean. That's well done. But what about like New Zealand leadership has been quite a shining light in recent times, don't you think? Some challenges, and how's the feeling there?
Well, I think our Prime Minister is really stepping up to the mark. I think that she's a very practical person, and she's a good leader. She's a statesman. That's the way I put it, a stateswoman, and she's taking charge and doing the driving, and you know, you can feel a confidence that is there. You know, it's almost like we're looking after you, we're looking after us, but this is what we actually have to do. So I have no complaints in regards to the level of leadership that the present government is actually giving.
Yeah.
And she seems very level-headed and sensible and practical, and no-nonsense approach. You know, here's the rule. This is what has to be done. And she's not making any massive promises about anything. She's just being very upfront about the reality of the circumstance, which I think is very important.
I've always felt it's a bit easier for a smaller country to lead the world well in new ways, because there's not so much you've got to shift to get a change or to get agreement. And you're not carrying a lot of history that needs to be considered. You know, you can really be free in the moment to make the moves and changes.
Yeah. Well, I think also New Zealand, where we are, you know, we're just pretty much isolated from everywhere else. And so from a point of how we're affected collectively, we're not. You know, I mean, we're affected because of what's going on, obviously, but you know, just trying to imagine what it must be like in places like Europe, and you know, the vastness of those continents where everyone is just so compact, and how you're all being involved in the energy, and you know, it's like a big cloud of energy that everyone is under, whereas here, you know, the other day, because you know, I'm still able to, if I want to, go out into my car and and have a drive. That stops on Wednesday, but so I did that. It was strange, sort of, you know, having to find an isolated place to walk, so I wasn't going to get in contact with anyone and contaminate people.
It's not something you normally think. Yeah.
Well, no. And I just found a nice beach where it was just nice to breathe the air and the clarity. So you know, we still have that in New Zealand, which is great.
Well, it's quite funny because my sister Amanda was telling me that they thought about closing the beaches in Australia, and I just thought, well, you know, of all the places to get healthy and just boost your immune system, could you think of a better place? You know?
Yeah. I suppose if the majority of the population is thinking the same thing, then that's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, but with all the vast spaces that are available, and even going down at midnight, even, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I've got, you know, my garden and a lot of outdoor sort of space around me, whereas I'd find it hard if I lived in an apartment where, you know, I couldn't access, you know, the ground and the ocean and, you know, all the things that we take for granted. So
yeah, everyone with different beliefs and different ideas and different things they're going to accept and not accept. It's sort of quite a leveler, isn't it, at the moment? So.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's the whole idea about, you know, the reality that we've all created, and you know, despite the severity of the situation, I can't help but feel and perhaps see the positivity of what's actually occurring.
Yes.
And when you're an intuitive person and a spiritual person, and you're able to be aligned with life as a vibration, you know, I don't feel at all any negative energies from this. I never have. It's I mean, I think about, you know, things Tabaash has talked about of the past, where, you know, these sorts of things were going to occur, and yet even then, you know, he simply talked about it in quite a positive way, and as we naturally you have to move into a different way of thinking, a different way of feeling, a different way of being. And I don't think anyone imagined it would sort of happen on such a mass scale.
No, you just wouldn't.
What?
What?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say, or if they did, maybe they thought of it more in the terms of a conflict as opposed to, the situation that we have at this point. So.
Yeah, like a neutral kind of organism.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Quite interesting. What would you say to people that, for example, many people, maybe there's people being exposed to Tabaash's teaching and yourself through this video that haven't seen such a thing before as a channeling or this work with a guide and teacher. What would you say to people in the
about channeling?
Yeah, about
Yeah.
what they're about to see and
Well,
welcome them or whatever.
Yeah. So I'll just give my stock sort of explanation.
Pull out that file.
Yeah, pull out that file. So I always say, imagine that you're watching television and you're on a particular station. So you're watching that program, but that doesn't mean all the other stations don't exist. They're just different frequencies. So if you consider that from a point of a channel, we're a multi-dimensional being. So what happens is when I channel spirit, I just basically step away from this station, this frequency. And my consciousness moves on to another station, and then Tabaash just borrows the signal. So therefore, that's how he's able to speak through me in the way that he does. Of course, the way that Tabaash uses my body is 100%. Not all channels work that way. So he engages people 100%. So he looks at people, and he's very tactile and able to really relate to people on a high level. And so there's no sense of distance, from him at all. He's very approachable and very amenable. And so, yeah, he just talks to people about life and
Yep.
what's going down on all levels, mind, body, and spirit. And,
well, how are you going to deal with the social distancing thing then, Blair?
Well, I'm just having to create better relationships with different aspects of myself. So in that sense, the room is full.
Yeah, true. Yes.
Who should I be today? Who shall I connect with?
I remember when I first met Tabaash through an introduction from Derek, our friend in Wellington, and I went along to the evening teaching down at was it the town hall or the library, National Library?
Oh, so we've spoken to so many theatres, I can't
remember. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were a few hundred people there, and I just remember this beautiful feeling of, internal energy and warmth. And at that time, I went ahead and met Tabaash privately and so on. And it's just been such a incredible experience for me, and eye-opening and empowering, I think, is a key word, empowering. And I always find that love and empowerment is there.
Yep, I agree. Well, shall I bring Tabaash through? And
yes, please do it. And thank you so much, Blair, for making the time to do this.
Great pleasure. Just for the audience, what I'll do now is I'll just close my eyes. It doesn't take long to bring Tabaash through, up to 20 seconds. There's a few shakes that my body goes through. That's just energy going through my body. And then Tabaash is there, and he sort of adjusts the body to fit his coordinates, and then gets on with it. So I'll say, goodbye to you later on. So in the meantime, Mr. T through. So I'll see you later on. Okay, brother.
See you.
Hello, Paul.
Hi, Tabaash. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored and pleased to be able to talk to you.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And I'm quite excited for, because there's quite a lot going on, as you know, and it always is. But I feel that your teaching will offer people a lot of perspective and I think comfort, and also have some tools and suggestions of how to work with this energy at this time.
I think, what's very important is to remember that, throughout the history of human nature, many things have occurred to not just wake people up to higher ideas, but to make them look very consciously at, who am I? Where am I standing? What am I feeling? What am I doing? And of course, people pick up a thread of their normal day-to-day existence and at times visit those concepts. But in the normal state of life, there's so much that distracts people. Life is a very distracting sort of commodity. Your jobs, your relationships, the noise of life is just so prevalent all the time that people have to make time to be able to walk towards themselves. And so, this situation that's occurred, and one thing I want to stress is that this is a human occurrence. This is not a natural occurrence. This virus is man-made. It is not something that nature has suddenly, created out of the blue. And so many factors have to be presented to people here. First of all, as you are isolating yourselves more and more from what's normal to you, what's natural to you, you have to be aware of what becomes a new normal, a new natural. And I said many years ago in the teaching, life with the knowledge of God or Source is productive, but life without the knowledge of Source or God is destructive. And so this time in history that is occurring is giving people an opportunity to walk towards something higher in themselves. And by doing so, they realize the importance of making new arrangements within the way they think, the way they feel, the way they live. And, through the decades, it has been spoken many times of the end of times, the end of the world, all those sorts of concepts. You are in the midst of this right now. And of course, people expected bombs or big tornadoes or something like that. But it's a great shift of consciousness into something more. So you're all moving into something more. So even though things will at some point return back to a form of normalcy, you won't be the same. And therefore you will see things differently, feel things differently, experience things in a different way. And so, the way as spirit we look at this is a massive rearranging of consciousness. And I said to you a long time ago, in order to be something more, you have to know what it is to be nothing. So suddenly here is a nothing time where people can no longer define themselves through their old ways of thinking or feeling, the labels they put onto themselves, the jobs that they have, the events of their lives. Suddenly they can't define themselves purely from those events, and suddenly they have to define themselves through their feelings and this vibration and the position that they find themselves in, at this particular point. And for those people who understand life in mind, body, spirit terms, then you have many lifelines that you're able to utilize. For those people who are simply involved in their human nature perspective, then obviously they have their reaction as opposed to their action. So they move first and foremost into the panic energy, into the fear energy, into the worry energy. And then invariably, when they realize, well, there's nothing to panic about or fear and such, then that's when they start to settle down into a different way of thinking, a different way of feeling, a different way of being. And so what's occurring in the sense of human nature is that, you're shedding a frequency, you're putting aside an idea that no longer serves you. And yet, when you stand still with it, and I think about something I've said to you in the past, which is the necessity for acceptance.
Yeah.
I accept the position that I find myself in. I accept also that I choose to be at peace with this. And by being at peace with it, I'm able to observe my circumstances differently. I may not currently have an understanding or an answer, but what I have is an acceptance and a peace which allows me to feel the bigger picture and therefore attract to me what is necessary for me to see. And that's an important message from us to all of you. What are you all seeing? What are you choosing to see through your experiences? And as I say this, I don't mean just see with your eyes, but what am I seeing through my feelings, seeing through my ideas, seeing through the position that the new arrangements I'm actually having to, see for myself. And therefore, what are the arrangements that I believe I need to make daily that offer me the opportunity to grow with this, evolve with this, experience with this. Some people would be of the mindset where, oh, well, this is just a great opportunity for me to catch up on Netflix movies that I haven't watched and, things of that nature.
Yes, there's a bit of that going on, I think.
Which is absolutely fine. But then invariably, it's all about what am I going to do with who I am and with what I feel? And what am I going to do with my life, with my relationships, with my family, with, all these circumstances and situations one finds oneself in? Because if you're suddenly thrown, into a situation, obviously some people, are alone, like you are, like Blair is. And so you're facing all of this, in that sense. But then, of course, you have people who are families and interesting. I was thinking about it from a point of, people who are involved in relationships where they've had issues. And now suddenly they're having to, be involved with each other and don't have ways of escaping from each other. And so it's very much about, what are the deals that actually have to be made, so that therefore, people realize, well, when I'm saying this, I'm thinking, the fact that everybody has the answers within themselves all the time. And now that you have this opportunity to find those answers, then it's no longer about using people as excuses anymore or your circumstances as excuses anymore. It's like, this is my situation, this is what's real, but I have within me the power to do something about it. And then no longer can people, point the finger or, create a blame situation. It's more about, okay, if I can be honest within my communication with myself, then I can find the truth of what my life is and where I stand. So, there are going to be many decisions that will be made by these circumstances and situations that people, are involved in, basically. I was talking to a young woman who lives in Romania. She's 13 years old.
Oh.
And it's interesting because she has an issue with going to school. She finds school overwhelming and challenging at times for many, many reasons. Anyway, and I said to her, well, no doubt in your country, they'll probably shut the schools down. And I know that you will be very happy about that because of the way you feel. And she laughed and made this great. As I said to her, I said, well, the novelty of that will wear off after a while. And there'll become, a time, maybe within a few weeks, where you will wish for school. You will wish that you were back out there into the world and aligning and connecting and creating as such. And so as I put to her, well, that's just, one reality, that you're thinking from. And this is some point that I'd actually like to make here, which is, from a spiritual perspective, as I said just before, everything is a multi-dimensional frequency. So you are made up of so many different angles, so many different frequencies. So your responses to your life circumstances come from certain frequencies. And so when you look at, what we'll call your stock responses, that tends to come from one dimension of you, one frequency in you. But then you've got this myriad of other frequencies that could respond differently. So you could say that, you've got one frequency that can freak out about all of this situation. And then you've got all these other frequencies that don't at all. And so everybody has within them, the coping mechanisms that allow them to get through life in whatever way, one's experiencing. And you want to say something?
Sorry, I was just thinking, I think sometimes we don't, or generally people don't allow themselves to feel good in a challenging situation because there's like a guilt or a requirement that you must join that, and it's almost like you have to make a stand and say, well, no, I'm going to allow myself to feel at peace here. I'm going to allow myself to be happy. I'm going to allow myself to create and be powerful. And it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I suppose in situations of what humans call adversity, their response would be from a position of this is a problem, or this is bad, or what's wrong, as opposed to, I find myself in a position where this is a great opportunity for myself to know who I am, mind, body, and spirit. So therefore, if I can look upon this daily from a point of what are the advantages of this, and what are the opportunities, how can I advance myself in this situation? And you're opening up to a whole lot of realms of possibility. And obviously it's relative to your circumstances and situation. And I find it, interesting in a perspective of technology. Can you imagine if this situation had occurred where human nature had no use of, Skype and WhatsApp and, communication on all levels? People would literally be completely isolated, from the world. Whereas, you still are able, to talk to each other and share with each other and communicate on all sorts of different levels. Many people are still able, to do their jobs because they're able to do things online and at home as such. Whereas in times before technology, the doors would have been closed. You would have had no idea what's going on with anybody.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, it's like us doing this interview. It's just an opportunity to just share with people and communicate with people and remind people that you have choice in how you are in life and how you actually deal with this.
I think it's a great contribution to allow yourself to feel peaceful and in harmony and even happy, because I had quite a day on Saturday where I went out and had sort of 4 quite significant interactions where I really felt everyone was uplifted. And it wasn't really from actually doing anything at all. It just unfolded that way each time from a state of being with all of us that happened to be interacting.
You said that, it makes me think of, Blair's got this wonderful group of friends who are shopping for him and making sure that he's not going to starve, you see. And so he's had 4 or 5 food drops from different people and conversations, as we said, outside doors and things. But afterwards, he was sitting in his living room and he felt very emotional because he suddenly felt the amount of love that he was receiving and the amount of care that he was getting from, these people who were going out on the way to make sure that, he had his essentials and that everything was okay. And not just from food drops, but from daily contact with people who just drop them a text, everything okay, anything you need, that sort of situation, basically. And he just thought with great gratitude about the friends that he has in his life and how much he loves them. And it was just very overwhelming, and he just felt that alignment and that connection. And And that's so important, when you look at who is in your life and, the people that are there, for you, and it's about, I've said in the past that all souls are here to serve each other. You are all here to serve each other. And so, try to find ways where you're in this situation to do that. And I'm not just talking about food drops and stuff like that, but ways of connecting with the people you really want to, and share and tell stories and say what's important. And it's interesting because, of course, Blair's wife Kay is in a care home, and that's been complete lockdown for many weeks, and because he's been away, he's been in isolation, so he hasn't seen her for over a month. And this afternoon, it suddenly occurred to him, well, if this carries on, it could be I never see her ever again, because she could pass. And sort of thinking about the last time he saw her, just before he went away on his trip. And I mean, he's in harmony with that. But doors are being closed, doors are being opened, but it's still about what are the arrangements that you're making within yourself in how you respond to your circumstances and situations, you see.
It really does boil down to that, doesn't it? Because, what you said at the beginning about the nature of this. But then, you at this point, we probably can't really address that because it seems that this has to come out. I believe in honesty and clarity, and we need to make some new decisions as a collective. But right now and always, you just can't escape. It's really up to you.
I think, the aim of all the governments is to contain the circumstance so that therefore it doesn't get worse.
Yes.
So therefore, it's also about how you yourself as an individual are being contained in the environment that you find yourself in. And therefore, what ways you're going to organize that environment, to serve you.
Yeah.
And whether that's a mind, a body, or spirit thing, it's very much about what I just said before, the daily opportunity you have. While I'm in my container, how can I grow? How can I evolve? What can I do with this?
Yeah.
And it's an individual experience. Of course, some people will find it extremely challenging, to have to be in that sort of position. And yet, it's what they have to do.
Perhaps it's like when you start meditating, you sit there and you suddenly, then you just got this mind going and going and going, and you think, well, I'm doing it wrong. But if you hang in there a bit and maybe learn some guided meditations or whatever, it does actually settle down, and then you start to feel, and then you're really glad that you waited.
Just what you just said, I'll stress this to people. There is so much online that's available to people.
Yeah.
There's online meditations, there's online explanations about things, there's wisdom and knowledge, and the value of all of that, is with you.
Yes.
And so therefore, it doesn't have to be something you do for an hour every day, but there's some great little guided meditations and musics and things like that people can, tap into. There's a lot of great visuals that are out there for people.
Oh,
so
I was sitting even just this morning and yesterday, sitting in my chair here, and I think with the growth we're going through, there are, if you could talk about the physical changes, because in the awakening process, because I've found that different things move about and so on, and sometimes I believe these things are a little bit missed. People jump into reaction and get a diagnosis, and they're misdiagnosed, I think. But I've found if you sit in stillness, you just tune into that harmony, and just things like that just dissolve.
Yeah. Well, what you make me think when you say that is, for most people, they're used to responding to the vibration of the way that their lives are normally run. So everything is a frequency. You know, you adapt to the frequency of running to get the bus to go to work, or the tube, or whatever. You know, you adapt to the vibration, the energy of your workplace, or the supermarket, and all those sorts of things. And suddenly, when this is taken away from you, then what are you having to do? Is you're having to adapt to the energy of yourself, in your own frequency, and just to actually stand still. And therefore, really hearing what your body is saying to you, really hearing what your thoughts are saying to you, really hearing what your spirit is saying to you. And when you haven't got all those diversions and things around you, and you're suddenly really listening to life, in ways. And of course, the thing is that in this world collective energy, it's like the great silence. And in a great silence, you're hearing life differently. You're feeling life differently. You're experiencing life differently in a way that's never happened before on this planet, ever. And so because everything is shut off and shut down. And so the noise of life is suddenly not there. And the gift of life within yourself is what you're hearing. And then as you learn to listen, then that's when you're not just listening to your own soul. This is where you begin to hear spirit. This is where, if you like, I'll say, this is where you begin to really hear God. And speaking to you through your feelings, through your ideas, through your intuition, through your senses. And so when you shut off some of the human senses and you start functioning in more of a spiritual mode, you hear differently, you feel differently, you see differently. And there's going to be a lot of inspiration that people are going to embrace. And I think it's good to find expression of that inspiration. A lot of beautiful works of art will be made during this time. Beautiful books will be written. Music will be composed, and there will be, ideas and things that will manifest that invariably as things return back to the new normal, then, these things will be presented, to people. And so, what an opportunity, to just stand still for a moment and observe, feel, and create. And I get back to what I said before about acceptance, peace, observation. That puts you into a better position of creation. Because as you observe from a position of peace, you're able to, what you were just saying before, you just feel that alignment, you just feel that clarity. Because there's nothing that's in the way of allowing you to hear what's really natural. And, it's interesting too, it gives the planet itself a sudden chance to sort of take a big sigh of relief.
Yeah, and we get evidence of that too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Suddenly the world isn't being assaulted, consistently. So the skies are clear, the streams are pure, the trees and the nature is just allowing itself just to, it's like you can feel the hum of greater consciousness, just lifting and feeling that vibe. People, been saying to me and to Blair, it's like they can see a more of a vividness in the color of things and the sound of things and the feeling of things. And so it's like the earth paused and went, oh, this is a good chance for me to regenerate, renew, realign, basically. See. And I think, when I said that, I thought that's where humanity has to look at the position that they're playing on this planet now. And make the relevant changes.
I do have a question about that, because I'm not a person that likes to really go into the big problems too much, but I do have a question mark over this 5G thing, and how destructive is that? Is it destructive for nature? I know there's different gigahertz, but is that a factor? Because I know that it's been involved in the areas that have been hit quite hard with this local, this current situation.
Any vibration that is emitted that isn't in harmony with anything that's natural, of course, is going to have a detrimental effect on things. But the interesting thing about that is that nature has a very astute way of aligning itself, and it just keeps raising its frequencies, because when things are of a state of nature, then it can access source power, and it can lift its vibrations to be able to adapt. However, saying that, if there's too much of a specific frequency that's all too prevalent, then nature itself finds it difficult to make the transition. So it's like just being bombarded, and it just doesn't have a chance to stand up at all. Yeah. Until invariably it just crashes as such.
Yeah, that makes sense on different levels for people as well. If you've got too much of anything,
of course, absolutely.
You can't,
yeah. Well, I mean, I got the vision in my mind of, you're trying to stand up, but this big water jet is on you, and as much as you try to stand up, the water just keeps pushing you down, pushing you down, pushing you down, and of course, invariably, what occurs is that you just get weak. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, invariably, you have no more strength to stand up. You have no more power. You have more alignment. And so therefore, it's like you just drowned.
I just wonder if big decisions like that affect the world and humanity should be a little bit more openly shared and discussed rather than sort of pushed through. It just seems like it's...
when you're saying that, it makes me think of how too easily humanity simply accepts, well, that's just the next level, and we don't have a choice, and this is just what's happening.
Yeah.
And so people are complacent and lazy, when it comes to making a stand and saying things.
Without, we're not looking at conflict here, but what's a way to stand in your, just for everyone, for listeners, what's a way to stand in your power and discuss these things without getting shut down at the moment?
Well, I think about, united we stand, divided we fall. Mm. And so the more people have a voice and have the majority of the voice, then, they make the change, they make the difference. When humanity realizes that, no, we're not putting up with this.
Mm.
We don't want this, come up with something better, change something here.
Well, check this out. Just as you said it, I had a message roll up, someone telling me 5G is rolling out in Japan on the 25th of March, just as we're discussing it.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting because, the way nature is able to realign itself at this particular point, then perhaps it will be able to lift itself to such a degree where the 5G won't have an impact. And often when people have said to me, Tabaash, what is it that you can do to counteract, these vibrations, these frequencies and stuff? And always I say, be God more.
Yeah.
And okay, what I mean when I say that is it's about aligning yourself to the idea that you are this massive power source. It's not about something you have to become. It's something that you are. So of course you counteract anything when you're coming at life from the highest perspective, whether it's 5G or cancer or bad mood or whatever. The more you're living your life from the highest idea, then that's a resonance that you're sending through you. So of course that repels anything that's not natural. So I mean, any form of disharmony, dis-ease, distress is not natural.
Mm.
So when you are creating from your own position of what's natural, then you realize that you possess all the components that can repel anything that would disrupt what's natural to you. And of course, the thing is humans have accepted too easily what's unnatural. And therefore, whether it's food or vibrations or thoughts or situations or whatever, they accept too easily. Oh, I don't have a choice here. This is just the way life works. And, I just have to adapt into this. And this is what humans have done.
Yeah.
And of course, it gets back to what I said earlier, but you can't now live life without the concept of something higher. Otherwise, you just create physical, mental, emotional, spiritual destruction. I don't believe for a moment that that's what humanity en masse wants. And yet, this time is, I suppose, you're making a decision. You're making a decision about what you want. Yep. And not the government's telling you what you want, but you telling you what you want by the creation of this time that you've got with yourself. Make a decision. Who am I? What am I all about? What are my qualities? What's my power? What are my choices? And embrace those, and then do something with those. As an individual, it's like all the qualities, And I said to Blair, I said, okay, well, you got all this time on your own. What are you going to do? And he said, well, I'll just face that daily, but I'll just be God more every day. But then I'll look first around here, and I'll look at what are the things that need doing. And I mean, obviously, he's still able to work, so there's that. But then he's had a few jobs that have been hanging around for a while that needed to be done.
Yeah.
So he's been out in the garden, and he was scraping some windows this afternoon, and then he picked up ukulele and practiced chords, and then he did some writing on his third book, and so it's there, it's all around you. Don't think, oh God, what am I going to be doing? These four walls are going to be closed in on me and stuff.
Yeah.
Organize it so it works for you.
Yeah. Well, I want to mention that third book because I actually I took a month to read the last chapter of Who Catharted, the second book, because I didn't want it to end. So come on, let's go.
Yeah, okay. No pressure here.
But really, it's so much fun to read a book like that. It's one of my favorite books. I've got a few favorite books. In fact, if someone's looking for something to read, I'd definitely encourage your and Blair's creations. And I really loved the Autobiography of a Yogi. I really love that book.
Yep.
And an adventure book, Shantaram. That's a real beauty.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely, say to people, I'm a great advocate of Greg Braden.
Yes.
And, I think his writing is amazing, and I think his message is amazing. So, and there's definitely some really good information for people in his books for this time in history. So like I said, it's all out there, and scan. There's just such a wealth of information. But when I'm saying this, I'm thinking to people that, but what's really important is what is your story?
Yeah.
And what is the story you're daily writing about who you are and what you think and what you feel and what you do? And be conscious of that, but also be conscious of which aspects of self you feel you have to put down now. And to the audience who doesn't understand that, I would say it just means the detachment of old ways of thinking, old ways of feeling, old ways of being, the realization, I can't do that anymore, or think that anymore, or feel that anymore. I can't be involved in that way anymore. And again, it doesn't have to be a big process as such, but one could quietly sit down and then, even if you want, you can make a list of all the things that you realize, well, this isn't part of my story anymore. And you could out loud go, I release myself from, and then just mention these things. And at the same time, you could also think about what are the things that you want to make as part of your new story. and therefore you could write that list down, and therefore I accept that this is now part of my new story. And so it's a good way of setting an intention, but also detaching yourself from what was, without, making a whole big deal about anything. Just, keeping the simplicity of it. And, I think about something I was talking about some months ago. And I said to many people, coming's up a time where, humans are having to get back to basics, in lots of ways. And I think each individual defines what basic means to them. And so I don't think that people have to look for this overall plan that everyone has to follow. I think it's more the individual plan, that's important. And if your individual plan is forged from your mind, your body, and your spirit, well, then, of course, that plan will be very collaborative with everyone else's plans. And therefore, it supports, the vibration and the energy. So rather than, and I think people are looking for some guidance or some answer that tells us what to do, and it's not like that. It has to come from your individual energy first. What can I do? What can I feel? And if you're doing that from a point of harmony, well, of course, it's going to benefit from everybody else as well. So you're creating the collective voice by your individual voice.
Yeah. I think one thing you notice is that with the individual voice and living in your own harmony, you start to sense the harmony of everything. And that in a way, that means you don't really need to control more than you need to control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point to make, because, human nature gets into taking on too much simply because they panic or they don't believe there's going to be more. But I mean, the whole thing is that there's always more. There's always going to be more. But, it's like in the grocery stores and things, panic buying. Whereas, in New Zealand, they say, look, there's enough food, the distribution is still happening. So, and yet people are buying 500 rolls of toilet paper for some reason.
What's with the toilet paper?
So they think they're going to spend a lot of time on the toilet or something. I don't know.
It's not so weird.
So it's try to maintain as much sense of normalcy as possible. But of course, human nature is really good at stockpiling, whether it's weapons or attitude or toilet paper or whatever, because they panic. They think, oh, I got to look after myself and be prepared. But being prepared doesn't mean stockpiling, when you don't need to.
Yeah.
And okay, maybe there are countries where people don't have that opportunity. Whereas when you live in countries that, hey, everything's fine, and just have your daily routine and your daily structure, Blair's used to buying food daily, and so there's never anything in his cupboards or his fridge because he just buys it when he needs it.
Yeah.
And he's got more in his fridge now than he has ever had before. So, have the thought that you need for the day, the feeling that you need for the day. Have your actions for the day. Allow yourself to not inundate yourself with a whole lot of stuff that you don't need to. And of course, as people are having to face themselves, it's putting the spotlight on yourself and basically looking, oh, yeah, this is a good chance for me to see myself. And as I said, take advantage of that. And, the other thing, too, is that this gives us a great opportunity to be more prevalent amongst you all. Because as everything is quieted down, then, we can get in there. And so there'll be a lot of people who will see things and feel things and experience things. Because, the energy of consciousness has now blended, with human consciousness in a way which, again, hasn't happened before. And so this is exciting.
can you share your teaching about the whispers of the whispers of life?
Well, life talks to you all the time. I always say, listen to the whispers of life, which is life's way of saying to you, over here and check this out, look at this, and the signals and signs are there all of the time.
Mm.
And of course, in normal circumstances, the signals and signs come about through more human nature things, like a song on the radio or a billboard that you see or something you read. But then suddenly the whispers of life are in the room with you. And people begin to feel this more and sense this more. And you are being told, okay, this is a day, this is what you need to do. You could ask your higher nature every day, or you could, put the thought out to spirit or guides or whatever, and you will get answers, and they'll become a lot quicker and stronger, maybe because the barriers aren't up anymore. And it's about following that through. One thing I would like people to do, because I think it's useful, and of course for some people they don't know what this is, so they can look this up online, but it's all to do with the Merkaba.
Yes.
Which is the geometrical figure that is around everyone. It's your light body energy. And if you put some attention onto that and do some of the meditations around the Merkaba, it will help to spin the vibration where it allows you to assimilate the new energy that's being created at this particular point.
Yes.
So you're able to assimilate physiologically easier if you do some meditations on that.
Mm.
And so,
and I can vouch for that, because I did it this morning actually, and I felt immediate shift.
Yeah.
Immediate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So things I would suggest would be work on the Merkaba. Also, the other thing I would suggest would be to chakra balancing. So really, working with balancing your chakras, because that's your energy centers that distribute the forces of life through your physical body. And the third thing would be walk through your day with peace. Don't be urgent, don't be anxious, don't be afraid. Walk through your day by peace, because it is through the energy of harmony and peace that things are easily established better. And one thing that I want to address, before we finish, is this is an opportunity for all of you to become more in mind and body and spirit terms. It's an individual journey. And so the story that you tell yourself is a story you're creating. So you're now in a position where you have to decide what you choose to create. Be realistic about things. And so while life is on pause, look around you and see on other levels how much is actually happening. How much you are able to see and feel and hear on levels that you would never consider before. And it's all relative to each person's belief system and understanding. And so, if you come across what I'm saying now, then you're obviously of the way of thinking and feeling where you can feel the bigger picture and see the bigger picture. But nothing can work if you don't make you work. So one can, gather a lot of food, but if you do not have a stove or amenities, how can you do something with it? So it's always about ensuring that you feel secure in who you are, mind, body, spirit. So that therefore, whatever life's story is and whatever the whispers of life are saying to you, you hear them, but also you know exactly the way to use the energy. And so it's all relative. Can you imagine trying to give a cell phone to a prehistoric person? It just would be impossible. So don't use tools that mean nothing to you. Don't get involved in stuff that's unnecessary. Do what is relative to who you are and what your belief systems are. Don't over-engage with stuff that you try to know or try to understand. Use what you do understand. Think what you can think. Feel what you can feel. Embrace what is essential for you. You don't need to reach for more. You know, I said to you, Paul, in the past, don't make life a destination. Make life the experiences that you're actually having, because it's the experiences that create your destination. And if you experience every experience in the best way, whatever your destination is going to be, it will profit you to the highest degree. And with that, I shall finish and say goodbye. And our love, our blessings, our strength and power is all with you. And know that you are not working alone in any way whatsoever. And that despite what is happening on this planet, you are carried. We are carrying you. And God is carrying you. And this is not a time of destruction. It is a time to construct, a time of creation, and a time to love, and a time to stand still and be at peace. My love and blessings to you all. Goodbye for now. Hello.
Blair, welcome. Thank you so much. And that was really wonderful. Tabaash wrapped it up with a beautiful little blessing. And yeah, thank you so much. I think, I think people are going to really appreciate that. And I'm really glad that you could make the time to share it.
It's a great pleasure. I mean, we're all in this together. So, yeah, let's just hang in there together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, New Zealand's leading the way. We're going first with lockdown, so you can show us how it's done. we got some great tips.
That's good.
What's that?
I said, where did I put that key?
It's quite different in Japan, so we'll see how it unfolds here. But you know.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that every country is doing it in a different way. So
yeah,
it's been a great joy and a great pleasure to be able to speak to everybody. So I'll say bye to everyone for the moment, and my love and blessings to you all.